All right. Well, welcome everyone. Super excited to have both Bryan, Joe, Dan, myself. I'll start with a quick intro. My name is Katherine Wroth. I am the marketing manager here at Barrett Distribution Centers. I am going to be hosting the panel today and hopefully bringing you not just information, but valuable information in the least boring way. So I'll let everyone do a quick intro and we'll just jump right into it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll just say hi real quick, Joe. Brian Corbett from Barrett Distribution. I'm VP of Sales and Marketing at Barrett. Work with Kat closely and worked with your team closely on a few deals and been in the industry a long time. So eager to provide some value add for some people out there, hopefully today. And let's get to it, Joe. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian and Kat, for having us here today. So my name is Joe Spisak. I've been in e-commerce and logistics for 12 or 13 years now. I am the CEO and co-founder of Fulfill.com. The core function of our business is we help brands match with the right warehousing and logistics partners. Before this, I owned two different e-commerce brands. I sold one of those about 6 years ago. And I also used to own a 3PL in central Pennsylvania that I sold right around the same time. Go ahead, Dan.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Hey, everyone. Thanks again to the Barrett team for having us here. My name's Dan. I am the COO and co-founder of Fulfill as well. Joe and I have been running this company together for the last 5 years. It's been an absolute blast. And the area where I focus for the most part is working closely with our 3PLs on our network to help them find the right fit brand for their ICP. And then also, of course, work very closely with the brands when looking for a 3PL partner. So I focus on the sales, the ops, and then the overall matchmaking experience. My background is actually as a broker for 10 years. I started off in the finance industry and then had a few e-commerce brands on the side that I was working. And through that, I came in touch with Joe. I think it was 7 years ago now when he was scaling his 3PL, and then 5 years ago got the offer to help him grow Fulfill. So excited to chat, excited to talk through what we see in the industry and hopefully provide some insight here.
Yeah, Dan was actually one of my first fulfillment customers with a supplement company that he started. So that's how we really got close, and we've been buddies and business partners ever since. So
Nice.
Amazing. All right, so the whole crew's here. So we're going to divide today into two different segments, and then at the end, we're going to do an AMA, ask us anything about the 3PL search process. So I'll start off with our first segment, which is what are the options? So we'll start with a group question. First question is going to be, what options do brands have once they know that they need a 3PL?
I'll start with it and then let the fulfill guys finish because they're specific. They're certainly a niche. Provide a niche service, which is really valuable. So I think generally speaking, whether it's an e-commerce brand or obviously the whole way up to Fortune 100, there's a few different options, right? You can search yourself with your own staff and your own expertise. You can hire a consultant who can run an RFP or do that for you. Or this newer wave in the last 7-8 years is, and depending on the size, is where I think Fulfill will come in, where you can, in essence, find a company who has already pulled together a group of providers that they've either pre-vetted with, an ICP or some kind, or, with their expertise. And Dan and Joe, I'll let you guys talk to that. Those are the core ideas I have.
yeah, I mean, you're pretty much spot on there, and I can just drill down a little bit further. So whenever you say, kind of look for a 3PL yourself, that comes in a couple different flavors. So, traditionally, whenever I own my e-commerce brands, you go to Google and you type in best fulfillment company for my board game company. And you kind of get hit with the same 10, 20, 30 different 3PLs that are sponsoring Google ads, right? And it's really tough to kind of dig into the tens of thousands of options out there and really find what may be the best matching option for you. And in addition to that, now we have AI search, obviously. So a lot of people are starting to ask ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera. And I'd say the other big kind of DIY way to find a 3PL that people really lean into is referral based, asking another founder that you trust or asking, a peer that you trust in the e-commerce space.
Yeah, Joe, it's interesting you say that too, because people Fulfill competes with our marketing department in a way, right? Because we all have the same marketing dollars. We're going after similar clients sometimes. And what I've learned is that that's okay, because at the end of the day, the cream of the crop will tend to rise, right? And a rising tide does lift all boats. So what I found is, there's this weird, it's not unsimilar to things that have gone on in the past in our industry. And so we've embraced working with finders. You're not the only one, Matt Hertz and other companies, friends, we're all friends and competitors. But at the end of the day, the best people find the best 3PLs for the brands that they're servicing, I think, whether that's going through Fulfill first or going direct through 3PL. Maybe talk about that. Have you guys ever had situations where, you get good business or good referrals coming in, and they've also reached out to a consultant or a referral, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that like the big piece that we're kind of all focusing on here is there's no one size fits all solution for it. You can successfully find a 3PL going DIY. You can successfully find one with a matchmaker or a marketplace. If you're deep in the threads of Reddit too, like you might uncover a 3PL that nobody knew about but does a great job. And so we are all in essence competing for the same leads. And often we will have 3PLs that get a great lead that's not a good fit for them and then refers it to us to place within our network, right? So it's a very circular system I've seen over the last couple of years, where somebody else might win a lead and then 2 years down the line it'll make its way over to us. And I think that's fine. At the end of the day, what we're all looking to do is establish long-term partnerships. Yeah,
Dan, that's a really key point, because it's a very high trust thing to advertise that's true. Barrett, we get leads all the time, and we have an internal network that we know it's a good fit for us, right? We're in the long term, 85 years, right? So we're in the long game, just like you guys. So I think we're going to get into but green flags of things to look for when your 3PL finder has a lead and it's not the right fit, and they give it to another company or they bring it back. And vice versa with us. That's a green flag to look for for a brand, right? If a 3PL finder is saying, "Hey, do this, not that," and if a 3PL like Barrett is saying, "Hey, you're not the right fit for us, but let me send you to Fulfill because they have a network of 1,000 3PLs that are better than us for this specific thing," that's a good thing to look for. Maybe that's valuable, right?
I think it is, because one of the areas where Fulfill operates, we'll have brands come in that are running their own search. Again, it's not exclusive to work with a matchmaker. I mean, I don't think other matchmakers require exclusivity as well. And we always encourage, especially when it's a brand operator or a team that has significant experience in the space, to continue to pursue the options that they have found and use Fulfill as a strong comparison point. We might uncover something else that they were not considering, or we don't want everything to be a commodity as it is becoming, but at the same time, we can help with the negotiation process, present rates that are competitive against other 3PLs that they're looking at, and be a point of comparison, as I said, to know that when you do ultimately make the final decision, you didn't just go through one lane and turn off the potential for DIY, for referrals or consultants, whatever it is.
I think those are all some really good valid points, and it actually brings me to think, and we just all right, let's start the Be Honest segment. There are some advantages and disadvantages to using a 3PL finder. So Dan and Joe, I'm curious to hear both sides. What are your thoughts?
I think we're perfect, so there's no disadvantages.
I only have pros.
Yeah, right.
We do everything. That's the reddest flag of all, right? Yeah. We are the everything 3PL.
Yeah.
The everything. Congratulations, audience. We can hang up.
Yeah, actually, if you hear that, run the other way.
Yeah, no, that was terrible. Wrong. This would be a good clip to cut up.
Yeah. I can start with one of the big pros. So one of the big pros is the quantitative data that we're able to bring to the scene. We've talked about DIY and kind of the extra hours and risk that you can potentially take by trying to do something yourself, by adding in all this extra time from the search perspective, but also all this extra risk from the potential to pick the wrong partner perspective. And then we go into a more traditional broker, which whenever Dan and I started the company, that was kind of a lot of the people that we saw on the scene and who we kind of really considered to be our big competition in the space. Think like logistics experts who have been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years, and they have, their 15 to 30 kind of favorite 3PLs that they've used in the past, and that's kind of their go-tos. And people, know these guys, know their stuff, so they'll come to them with their scope of work, and then they'll pick from their, smaller pool of 3PLs that they think could be a good fit. Where a matchmaker like us really starts to excel is when we've worked with tens and tens of thousands of different brands, and we have hundreds of different data points on 3PLs, and we've had successful matches all across the board, and we can use AI to kind of narrow down from our big pool of 2,800 plus 3PLs down to a short list of maybe, 30, 40, 50 that our matchmaking team comes in, analyzes, and then narrows that down to our top, 3 to 5 to 7, depending on how many folks a brand actually wants to look at. So I think we do a really great job of combining that data approach along with the human element, just because there's so many variables that are tough to account for that you can't just throw into an algorithm and say, okay, here's your best 3.
Yeah.
And I'll give the disadvantage, but I'll do it in a way that's a compliment for Dan and Joe. That'll be, I think, realistic, right? So, because I think Barrett is a good example of this larger middle market enterprise client for Fulfill. So to put it this way, Apple Computer isn't going to fulfill.com to fill out a lead form, right? Okay.
Correct.
Like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo isn't using a 3PL finder. Why? Right? Because, well, the decision process for a Fortune 100, Fortune 500 is completely different than a startup ecom brand or even a 5-year Instagram brand. There's risk mitigation. There's insurance and liability and like so. And at the end of the day, companies they go like for a reason, and it's not. And these are companies that have established supply chains themselves. They're not price sensitive. They already know the industry. They probably know it better than us in ways. And so they're using a completely different process. Now, the middle pool is where, I think that, and I've seen the evolution, Dan, of your product move from, initially filling out data forms using AI, using whatever tools to match. And what you're finding is probably with a company like Barrett, there's certain clients that come to you that are kind of in between. They're in between maybe wanting to use an automated service to find a list, but they're also omnichannel. They have complex needs, and they might even want you to stay on calls and be more consultative in the process, right? I've noticed that's kind of the next evolution from the finders is now you guys are slowly becoming experts in the space. And Joe, it's not a coincidence that you ran your own 3PL. So like you're able to do things on a personal level that Barrett would need, or a 3PL. Companies that are coming to us, they need much, much more than data forms, right? So I'm curious to see how you guys plan to attack that space as you grow, because more mature, a mature brand with a more mature supply chain and with complex needs, that's a fit for Barrett. But we're still finding, company like, and maybe I'll say it this way. Have you guys had customers come back to you and say, hey, we need to level up. Can you help us do that individually and vet out clients and dig into more of the details on a personal level with 3PLs? That was long-winded, but I'm just curious how you approach that. Yeah.
I've got a couple points that I can make there that kind of, one, speak to the evolution of the matchmaking space and our product, and two, the different sales cycles that you might go through with an SMB mid-market versus enterprise brand and how we tweak our approach too. I think the first thing, the evolution of our product in particular, our core advantage 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, was early stage partner curation. Back when it was very difficult to even find a pool of 10 3PLs that were a good fit for you on the internet. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, we had a system set up and a database set up that allowed us to very quickly curate the 5 to 7 3PLs that you should consider speaking with that are going to fit your niche, your ICP, and your needs, right? That's no longer a value prop that differentiates you in the market, because there are other competitors that can do the same thing. People can find good 3PLs pretty quickly. It's shifted in the last year and a half because of the competition, because of our own technical capabilities, and just working with mid-market and up brands to a more consultative process, consultative and matchmaking combined. Of course, we still do the early stage partner curation. You can come to us and fill out our form, and we'll be able to find, again, 5 3PLs that are a strong fit for you. But we don't just drop off there. We are now building into our process. We have integrations into companies' WMS, into your various storefronts, the ability to run, put together comprehensive analytics on where your warehouse should be located, how your price compares in an industry where it's impossible or very difficult to get apples to apples.
Well, Dan, you know what else? Hold on real quick. You know what else is impossible besides price? What you have is you have 7 years of results now.
7 years of results. And that was the piece that I was going to finish with, which is what we actually now lead with on our website and in our conversations. We've matched over 10,000 brands with 3PLs, and we can say that we have a 96% match success rate, which is a 96% renewal rate on contracts between brands and 3PLs in an industry where turnover is much higher than that. So those are the advantages, and I'm happy to name from my perspective some disadvantages that I think brands should be considering when they work with a matchmaker too, or if you had a question, I can answer that first.
Well, Kat, I think one of the questions we had today was talking about some of the fast-growing e-commerce brands who might be pre-omnichannel. Okay, they're D2C only, which is a simpler thing. Barrett does that, but we really excel in omni and retail compliance and really leveling up into scale. What do you see those early stage D2C only brands looking for? You can't say price because that doesn't add value to anybody. What are they looking? Are they looking for things other than that? And when they aren't, how do you advise them? How do you approach that, Joe?
That's a really good question, and I use the phrase a lot. The right 3PL for a $1 million ARR brand may not be the right 3PL for a $10 million ARR brand, because that's where those big jumps start to happen in terms of differentiation in what you need from a fulfillment perspective. Whenever I used to own my board gaming company, when we were going from $1 to $5 million, that's classic like breakthrough into omnichannel. You start off Shopify D2C, and then you start to expand into Amazon, FBM, FBA. You hopefully can get to the point where you can get on some retail shelves, and you have to do, an EDI integration. And you really have to make sure that if you're hopefully able to go to the distance and scale successfully, that we really try and help vet brands on the front end to see where they're going and make sure the people that we're matching them with are going to be able to scale with them for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Which is really hard, by the way, because
really hard.
So I was reading this thing the other day, basically that says 10% of people listen to advice anyway, and nobody changes. So it's like, including myself, and we unfortunately we do the same things until we experience pain in our lives. So it's funny, we do these like podcasts and we tell people, hey, we're experts, here's what you should do, and the truth is, people are like, okay, yeah, and then they don't really do it until there's pain, right? Until they go through it and touch the stove. Okay, I don't want to do that again. And so it's really, and a lot of companies who are growing have never run their supply chain before. So Joe, if you self-fulfilled before, you have some pain there, right? And so I've found it difficult and so that's why we're big at Barrett on showing people, bringing them to the facilities. For instance, one of the reasons why you struggle with D2C 3PLs only is storage methodology. That alone, because once you start picking cases instead of eaches, it's a completely different setup. It doesn't matter what technology you have. It simply doesn't matter. And so that changes pricing, that changes staffing, that all these things. But a lot of people just don't even know what that looks like or don't even know what that means. A lot of companies don't until they go through the pain with their current provider, lose money, can't grow. And so I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. How do you really convey that in a high trust manner that's not salesy, to the clients? And one of the ways we do this at Barrett is we bring them to our site, and this is going into maybe our next segment, but is showing them like for like in the building. So have you guys seen that where there's a need on a solution side that's in direct conflict with how the 3PL operates in terms of how they store the product, how they design the solutions, how they engineer it? These are things that I try to coach folks on from expertise. I'm not sure if they listen all the time. sometimes they come back 3 years later. We have a joke at Barrett that, we're planting seeds for 3 to 5 years from now, right? Because,
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I hate to bring it back to my board gaming companies again.
No, it's fine.
But that's literally why I ended up starting my own 3PL, was because I went through 3 different 3PLs over the course of a year and a half. One of the board gaming companies almost went bankrupt during the holiday season, when board gaming companies do about 80% of your sales. And we got really, really screwed over by one of our 3PLs. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. We ended up with all this extra inventory that we couldn't sell. It goes on and on. We ended up, bringing it back into my mom's garage from there and starting the 3PL. And then, 5 years later, we had a 140,000 square foot building. But I use that example.
By the way,
all
was
the
that
time.
building completely different than your mom's garage, right? Like, or
No, that
not,
was my mom's
maybe.
garage. She's got a big house.
All right. That's good.
Yes, it was completely different. We went from mom's garage to 1,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet to buying the 140,000 square foot building. And, we really prided ourselves in flexible fulfillment. We thought the area that we could kind of fit into the market was boutique to mid-market level 3PL, where, we would have direct communication with our customers. We would, be one Slack message away if someone needed something. We would really kind of pride ourselves in taking on these one-offs in terms of kitting and staging and assembly. But then we started to grow and kind of take our lumps and realize, like you said earlier in the call, Bryan, you can't be everything to everyone, right? So then you kind of start to figure out who you are and figure out where you fit into the market from there. But yeah.
Perfect. Oh my God, from mom's garage. Love that story. So we're going to go into our next segment, stay on time here. So it's going to be super easy, red flag, green flag. I'm going to give you guys a theme, and then we'll go over if we should run towards it or run away from it. All right, so let's start with, these are some good ones. Let's start with the contract logistics sales process, okay? What is one red flag from each perspective?
I'll start, even though I'm on the sales side. I'm interested to hear what Joe and Dan say, because they've seen a lot of the processes. But I've been at big 3PLs and now Barrett, and these are things that I try to avoid, even when your subconscious can kick in. So I think one of the red flags of a mature 3PL finding process is to not be visible with the 3PL and not meet the people who are non-salespeople, and not be asking to meet operators and site visits. So we get concerned because we're looking for long-term partners, and we know what that looks like. It's not because we are more expensive and we're a premium provider, but it has nothing to do with price. And it's really hard to convey that to clients. But it is a red flag for us when there's no pain with their current provider, and the company they're not really interested in meeting our people. And particularly not the salespeople. I don't care about myself, right? Like I'm a former operator, but in this process, I'm sales. So what I look for is them saying, "Hey, Bryan, can I meet your head of IT? Can I meet the GM in the building? Can I meet the operator?" Those are great. Those are buying questions, and those are questions that signal to us that these people know what they're looking for, and they're looking for a partner. What do you guys think about that? Because these are things you don't see on LinkedIn, but I get excited because I'm like, okay, great, because I can't wait to introduce them to other people at Barrett.
That's spot on. And the best 3PLs act as a true extension to a brand, right? It makes it as seamless as possible, instead of, some third party shipping provider that you have to, triage 3 emails through just to get a hold of someone in order to solve one of your problems. So you're spot on with that. A couple of things that I thought of and I've kind of experienced in the past, quotes before discovery. So if people are just from the brand and the 3PL side of the house, but if a brand's coming to you trying to demand a quote right away before either side has time to do proper diligence there, it's a red flag. Same thing with the 3PL. If you kind of submit your information and they're just ripping a quote right back, There's just so much more that goes into it to be able to give kind of proper pricing on a given scope of work. So that's something that I've seen be a little shaky in the past.
By the way, Joe, this is advice that nobody will listen to. Like I say this, we have, how many years do we, no, I'm serious. We say this all the time. It's not because we're trying to make money. It's not because we're like, people need to know we're in a single digit margin industry. Trust that. Like we are not selling SaaS. 3PL industry is 100 years old. It's a commodity. It's low margin. This is great advice that you're giving. Please, whoever's on the call, listen to this. It has nothing to do with price.
The other piece I'd add on to that too, a red flag is if there's no conflict whatsoever during the sales process. How many times I've seen a salesperson at a 3PL say, "Oh, we can do that, no problem. We can integrate in a day. We can get that new channel spun up for you, no problem. In a week, we'll get you onboarded in 2 weeks in peak season," right? Without even asking a question or understanding what's actually going on, and just being the yes man to try and get the deal over the finish line.
Which is so slimy.
It's it's slimy, but
it's just
a lot. How often? Oh, this.
I know.
3PL promised the world. And I think it gets at what Joe was talking about, quoting before discovery too. Yeah. That's probably a sales team that isn't nuanced enough.
Dan, do you know who would never do that? As an operator, right?
Exactly.
That's why you asked to meet. Yes, that's why a good salesperson will like introduce the team and show you, meet other people, because they're not salespeople. And what scares them is bringing on business, my team, that we don't know anything about, and we gave them pricing to commit to.
But you can't.
Right. So bring it green flag would be involving the GM in the building. I always say this from a buddy of mine: you're only as good as the GM in the building. Bringing those people in early, getting them aligned with pricing, the service that they love the sales team for doing that. They love the client who now is aligned. There's a better relationship with the GM and the customer. The best salespeople I've seen in the industry. The one thing I notice is they're all former operators and they're experts. They're not salespeople. We look very different. Joe, have you guys noticed that a lot of the older folks, and I'm one of them now, in the industry, we all look completely different faces and voices. And the most successful ones are simply the ones who integrate the operations team with the customer early. And you guys, have you noticed that? It's a very weird industry like that. That's why it's hard to find, I think, good, trustworthy salespeople. What do you guys think? Have you noticed that or no? It's just an observation I've had.
I have noticed it. There's a handful of 3PLs, 15 to 20, honestly, so 2 handfuls of 3PLs that I see bringing in operators, bringing in the tech team during the sales process. Not all of them do it on the first call. Sometimes they
there's resources, right? I mean, it's
times, right? And I actually see that as the final portion of the sales process. Okay, we're going to get the tech team on and allay any final fears that we've discovered during the communication that we've had. And the tech team's going to bring a solution and walk you through exactly how it's going to work. And it just functions as a more network engineer style of sales process, where you get into the nitty gritty and you're not being sold, you're just being explained the solution.
Well, one of the reasons why sorry to get off topic, but one of the reasons why I like you guys so much is because you've gone and knowing Joe's background, it makes sense. You guys have gone from 3PL, yes, 3PL Finder, yes, using data, yes, having a great website, all these tools, but you're also, I can call you and you can coach expertise now. And that is the differentiator for your team to be able to work with between 3PLs and brands. I'm sure you're going to be utilizing that more in the future, but to me, that is a value add, because then it's just not the salesperson. Joe, you know what a good 3PL looks like. Dan, you've done thousands of these calls. It's more than price. It's more than more than what the sales guy's saying. But that comes from experience, and I think that's. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
I actually want to jump into questions because we're almost at the tail end here.
Okay.
Yes. So let's start with. There's a few audience questions. Let's see here.
I had like 20 more red flags to give, so, so let me know if you want to come back.
Joe, give a red flag real quick while Kat finds the first question.
Opaque or overly complicated fee structures. I could talk about that all day.
Okay. Beyond like the basic line items, you mean like beyond like order fee, item fee, storage, blah, blah, blah.
I've seen 3PLs with 100+ line item
Yeah.
quotes, which is ridiculous. And on top of that, there is a lot of ambiguity behind carrier rates. And with one of the 3PLs that I had one of my gaming companies with, you get this sticker shock at seeing a $1.25 pick and pack.
Right.
And then you don't realize that 80% of the shipping spend is coming through your carrier spend. And I didn't even see
carrier didn't put your 3PL didn't show the surcharges in the carrier.
Which I think, incidentally though, that's also one of the reasons why it's weird as you grow, as the companies become larger, as they become more corporate. It's one of the reasons why cost plus still exists. And a lot of younger folks in the industry might not understand. Okay, why does Coca-Cola, why do these large Fortune 50 companies use cost plus? It's because they understand that their supply chain becomes so complex that there does need to be line items. There does need to be 3PL does need to charge for these things, and it's just easier to say, hey, let's open our books, establish a set margin, and bill everything. And then you become a real, and Barrett, we have 4 or 5 large dedicated accounts at Barrett where we do that for, because it's not an excuse. I know what you're talking about, Joe, but there's a normal industry for that. And I know people on this call understand that, or who are watching. It does make sense that you can eventually just gravitate into a full dedicated partnership where we make 6% and we bill at cost. And now we're really sharing Kaizen events. We're sharing, lean initiatives. And so it's just interesting how that goes from you don't want any of that to you need a lot of it to let's just do cost plus. Just from my experience. But anyway, Kat, go ahead.
All right. So first question is from Tim. When searching for a 3PL, what is your approach on the SLA of shipping same day? My experience is that it is normally a struggle for most.
You guys want to tackle that? I can tackle it. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So, it's definitely harder to find 3PLs that are able to ship same day for sure, especially if you need that done, 6-7 days a week, or if it could just be through Monday through Friday. And then, monitoring those SLAs and make sure it's actually getting done on time is a whole different game as well. Then on top of that, you have to factor in when are these carriers actually coming to pick up from the actual 3PL. For example, like we had DHL e-commerce coming at 11 a.m. every day. But then UPS was backing up a truck at 5 p.m. every day. So, you just have to set expectations with stuff like that as well, and kind of have a cutoff time on when the last labels will be printed out, when you're going to slap them on the actual packages, when you're going to get them into the Gaylords, and when the drop dead time is that they're going to come and scan the BOL, take those away, and ship them to the end customer. Anybody that we've done same day stuff with like that, we've always helped them look contractually at a pretty granular level. And then there's always typically some type of, upcharge from a pick and pack perspective if you need to have that out same day. That's kind of my experience.
Yeah, my answer would be maybe less the same, but a little less nuanced in to say that at Barrett we have a kind of a basic set expectation of maybe noon or 1 o'clock same day. We have the resources in every facility to kind of pull that off for almost every client, right? But if somebody asks, what can you do? I do say we can truly do whatever you want if you're willing to pay for it. So that's the caveat, is if you'd like to pay for that. And that's when you say, let's dig into that. What does that cost? What is that going to look like? And so I would say, we don't want to say no. We want to give the option to the client to let them determine if it's valuable enough for them to pay extra. Because what does it require? People. Sometimes it requires overtime. You want a same day at 6 p.m. when everyone goes home. Well, that's going to be costly. And so we give the customer the choice of that, and say, if they're selling $500 dresses to women who need their dresses overnight, then yeah, they might want to spend an extra $4 an order to get same day, right? So these are questions this is why you need a partner and not a commodity provider, So my answer is a little more is nuanced. Is you can get anytime you want. You have to be willing to pay for it at a certain point. But basic level, I think you guys agree that I think like a noon basic D2C ecom brand is reasonable for same day cutoff. I think that there's so many 3PLs that offer that. That seems basic, but maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think? Companies struggle with that? Maybe. I don't know.
All right.
a lot of variables that go into
Yeah,
it.
sorry. Yeah, maybe there are. Don't name names. We don't need to go there.
I would also say it's not something that we get asked a ton during the sales
Is it
process.
assumed?
That's a good question. I should probably start to.
I do. Listen, I Barrett, I do think there's a consumer expectation of shipping a product within 24 hours. I think that's table stakes. And so
24 hours, yes.
Yeah.
Same day. At
Same
this
day
point in
can-
time,
yeah.
I think it varies. Yeah.
So Hugh, I think the answer is same day deserves some investigation, and you should ask upfront questions with your 3PL about what that costs.
Perfect. All right, next question. The 96% renewal rate, so this is for Joe and Dan, is incredible. What were some of the reasons that the 4% decided not to renew? Any common themes?
Yeah, of course. So the 4% non-renewal rate comprises 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is if a brand actually went out of business. We batch that in. The second is if the 3PL went out of business, and the third, which is also something we should have foreseen, and then the third is if they just needed to move. What you're focusing on is the reason they decided to move. And I think the core issues that we see usually happens after Q4. There's been some type of failure that either the 3PL tried to gloss over and did not confront initially with the brand and let them know about the issues that were occurring, and they tried to just hide it. So anything that disrupts that trust within the partnership is the top one. And then the second is just there are occasions where a 3PL can no longer scale with the brand. And we have brands come back to us in those situations a year or 2 years down the line. Thanks, this boutique that you put us with in South Carolina, a single location, it was fantastic for us getting off the ground, but we now need to have 2 or 3 locations. We need to be able to tie in to retail, wholesale, and other channels, or we want to expand out of the United States as well. And so the 3PL just isn't built for that, and it's a mutual parting of ways. There are, of course, just times where the 3PL really screws up. It's inevitable that it's going to happen. I think as we've kind of talked about, and Joe might have some more examples, there's thousands of ways a 3PL could make a mistake, but it all comes back to the 3PL didn't surface it with the brand when they should have.
Yeah, I'll piggyback the answer from the Barrett experience, because we have a pretty good industry renewal rate, 7+, 8+ years average client length, which is rare. I believe what I see when you peel the onion back on why an account will actually leave, it often is a combination of something went wrong, even if it's not a 3PL's fault, brand, whatever. Something bad happens over time, and the relationship is not strong. It is a people business, and our best clients are the ones that we mutually have engaged early. Yes, become friends. Yes, get to know each other. Yes, beyond sales, there's less of a handoff. There's more engagement. A good example, Kulani Keeney's cat, before they came to Texas, they spent 3 weeks on site with us, going over their returns process, working with our team. So that's a strong relationship, right? So it buys some freedom for things to maybe go wrong, that get rectified quickly. And so I'm big on the relationship side of the enterprise space is so important. And what I've seen, when I've seen customers, oftentimes it's a new CFO coming in who doesn't know anyone at a Barrett or whomever, right? And they have a friend, and or a PE group will come in and say, "Hey, we have a preferred 3PL and we're leaving now. They don't even care about the service or what's going on." That's a people thing. And so we have a strong team, and we really focus on account management, leadership. We don't, it's easy to say, "Oh, you have access to leadership." What does that mean? What it means is that you as an extension of your business, we have people here who are staying here, who are going to be here. We've let companies. We've let companies have a say in the hiring process in the building that they're in. We get worried if we have an account manager who gets promoted or takes a job somewhere else. We're like, oh, okay, who's best friend, who's closest with this client, and et cetera, because we know that one operator leaving is enough for some brands to freak out, because we're in the risk mitigation space. Our enterprise clients, they're with Barrett to lower their risk. They want to be with a profitable 3PL, provides a good service with steady employment, with steady staffing. So anything that disrupts that apple cart makes companies nervous. So that, so it's a kind of, for us, for Barrett, it's a little bit of combination of, like maybe something bad happening over time, plus new people, poor relationship, whatever. It's happened, and we learned from it. And now we're heavy set focused on the onboard process to nail that relationship, start from the beginning. So if you guys have anything to add to that?
We are on the last question. We are coming up on time. So for a garden tool company, this is from Hugh. For a garden tool company that currently does B2B, B2C, D2C, where would you start to find the best matched 3PL?
Fulfill.com, right? Or call Barrett. Dishonest answers. I look, Omnichannel. What do you guys think? I think it's a great place. I think it depends on volumes, right? Size of the business. Is that what you would say, Joe?
Yeah, volume, SKUs, and then what we would do is we would ingest all of that information. We would run it against our database. We would find 3PLs that have successfully fulfilled for customers of a similar vertical size and SKU count, and we would probably start there and then use that to start to shortlist our options, get pricing, compare that pricing, help you guys negotiate, and then help you find the best option. But again, it depends on a variety of factors. But a pretty good indicator is if a 3PL could be a good fit or not is, do they ship for 5 to 10 other brands that are in similar size and scope to what you do? Similar SLAs, similar return processes. It means they have better carrier rates at the weight amount of the SKUs that you guys have. There's just a lot of good positive overlap that typically is an indicator of green flags in that area. So if you are doing DIY, that's a good place to start. Find a 3PL that is shipping for other companies similar to y'all. Yeah,
and if you didn't go to Fulfill, let's say if you came straight to Barrett, it's kind of the same process. You'd fill out our form. We don't have the mountain of data that we're not giving you 20,000, filtering through 1,000 3PLs, but it would be the same process. You'd give us your data, and we would look at it and say, look, you're not the right fit for Barrett, or you are. Here's next steps. We might kick you over to a finder like Fulfill. We might send you to another 3PL that we already know is a good fit for your brand. So I do think that you're nailing it, Joe, on the like for like finding, and that's a green flag for site visits too. Is when you go to the warehouse, are there other companies? It doesn't have to be the same industry, but similar size, similar profile in that building, right? So, good question.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so I think we're good on time. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Any last minute notes, anything that anyone wants to add to the conversation before we sign off?
I'll just give a quick plug at the end. So first of all, if anybody wants to reach out and talk shop on anything e-commerce or logistics related, feel free to reach out on our website at fulfill.com or my LinkedIn at Joe Spisak. And the last thing I want to say, I know we've talked a lot about the fulfill.com folks and kind of what we can bring to the industry, but I just want to say how impressed we have been with the Barrett team for the last 5 or so years that we've worked with them. They're truly a best-in-class 3PL operator, from the people that help run the business to the people that are running in the warehouse. We've loved working with them, and they are truly a great option for mid-market to enterprise level brands. So thank you, Barrett, for having us.
Joe, my man, thank you for saying that. It means a lot to us. And Dan, I think, I'll plug myself for a second with Barrett, but I think one of the biggest compliments that I've ever gotten, and my boss Scott Hotham mentioned this the other day with other clients, is when you visited our New Jersey facility, you mentioned some of our staff looking happy, saying hi, and doing those like little things that you look for. And I made Tim Barrett's day, because we're big on our people. And what are you paying for at the end of the day? You're paying for people and a service. And so, it's good. It was really awesome to show you some of our facilities and say, hey, when people go to Barrett, what are they paying for? It's not just order fee. We're an extension of your company, and they're paying for the people who are here. And we have lifers here, for better or for worse. We have a lot of people who've been here 10, 15 years. So yeah, if you're looking for a mid-level mid-market, enterprise 3PL. We have startup programs too. Visit barrettdistribution.com. You reach out to me on LinkedIn or Kat or any of our salespeople. We love designing solutions for companies, and even when we're not the right partner at the beginning, we love when you grow in 5X, you think about us in a few years from now. So thank you both. You guys are some of my favorite people in the industry. Very high trust. I love you guys.
We appreciate it, man. Thank you guys so much for having us.
Of
Thanks everybody for
course.
joining.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.